Let's talk about the trade story. How encouraging was this week? Listening to Robert Lighthizer, a sign that maybe there are still some big sticking points going into this month.
Well, there's much more work to be done, as Ambassador Lighthizer said in our pen and pad yesterday. But let me just add, look, the president is reasonably optimistic about this. President Xi of China sent a lovely letter, a very positive letter in good faith. I think the talks on Wednesday and Thursday in general had what I call a good vibe. We're not ready to put things down on paper. We're a ways from that, frankly. Much hard work still is in front of us. But nonetheless, we did plow some new ground insofar as talking about specifics that heretofore the Chinese really didn't want to talk about. We dug into the tough issues. Again, as Mr. Lighthizer has said, whether you're talking about IP theft or forced transfer of technology or ownership or cyber interference or tariffs or non-tariff barriers on commodities, we tackled the tough issues in very specific ways, which I think is a big plus. But let me put this thought on the table, which is terribly important, okay? The March 1st deadline, it remains. The President, Trump, is sticking to the March 1st deadline. Second point, Ambassador Lighthizer has for quite some time talked about the need for unambiguous enforcement. Unambiguous enforcement. Now, the Chinese were willing this week to talk about that. We haven't reached agreements yet and details and so forth, but that is a subject that is on the table, and I would just say to you, that's a subject which is absolutely essential to successful trade talks.
Larry, most people would agree with you because there's a lot of people that don't even believe in the Chinese GDP numbers, never mind any agreement they would strike with you over the next month. What is the proposal from the US side on enforcement? What does enforcement actually look like as far as you're concerned?
I don't want to get ahead of that curve, and I don't want to dig into any details. Again, that's Ambassador Lighthizer's domain. He's the best in the business at it. All I can say is it's a key subject. It was agreed to be discussed by both sides. It was discussed. I think that kind of plowed some new ground in our talks that, I don't know, since I've been here, it's been a year, and the talks stretch further back than that. So it's too early for details. All I'll say is it's on the table, and that kind of enforcement discussion and ultimate resolution would be essential, central to any sort of agreement. But again, the president is mildly optimistic. Mr. Lighthizer is too. Most of the trade team, including myself, we like the talks with China. They had, if you pardon the phrase, a good vibe. They had a good vibe.
Well, Larry, let's talk about the vibe. Take me into the room. I want to understand the urgency on the other side of the table. We've just had an ISM cross the Bloomberg terminal, a really strong manufacturing ISM for America. I don't see anything like that in China right now. Did you sense some urgency from the Chinese delegation to try and get something done?
Yes. The answer is yes. The Chinese economy is softening. There's no two ways about that. I don't want to dwell on that, but that's the reality. Everybody knows it. Both the short-term problems, which may have something to do with our aggressive nature on trade and the president's tariffs, but also there are longer-term problems. I mean, look, here's a key point. If you step back a moment, it seems to me that China has been moving away from market-based economic reforms and toward more central planning, more state control. Now, that's an issue, and I think that has damaged their economy. Will that change? Well, look, the trade talks themselves, as we view them, would be market opening, would be more market-based. And we think, and President Trump has said this, we think if China opens their markets to us and China stops a lot of the difficulties with ownership and technology transfers and so forth and IP theft, we will export huge amounts of goods and services and know-how legally to China. Look, if this is done right, both sides and both economies and the world economy will benefit and prosper, okay? We've got to stop the unfair trading practices. We've got to make this reciprocal trading. We've got to have the rule of law. And I think that would help stem China's economic decline. Right now, though, as you note, and I think it's general, I said this 3-4 months ago, people were yelling at me, but the numbers keep coming in soft.
They don't look good.
I don't wish ill here. That's not my point. I'm just saying market-based economics work. State-run economies don't work. I think the trade talks are underpinned by that intellectual thought, among others.
Well, the IP theft issue, have they actually admitted to that taking place? Because to make any progress there, Larry, they've got to admit they're at fault first. Have they done that yet?
I think there's been a lot of acknowledgement that the problem exists. Okay, I don't want to go deep on this, but I think the reason, one of the points of success in these talks Wednesday, Thursday, as I said earlier, a lot of specifics were put squarely on the table for thoroughgoing, deep dive discussions, if you will. All right, and that's a big plus. That's why I think we plowed some new ground. And that's why Ambassador Lighthizer, I think, was pleased. Again, we're not ready for paper contracts or anything like that, and much work needs to be done. But, yes, I think there has been an acknowledgement. Look, one point, inside China, you know, IP theft, forced transfers, cyber hacking among Chinese companies is prevalent. They need to solve that problem internally for a better economy, and they have to solve that problem with the United States and the EU and Japan for a better economy. Do you follow me? In other words, this stuff could benefit China with a stronger rule of law if they go down that path and there's actual enforcement of some kind of new approach. So we'll see. I don't want to get too far ahead of that curve. All I'm saying is the March 1st deadline is intact. Lots more work to be done. Let's not kid ourselves on that. I believe Secretary Mnuchin and Ambassador Lighthizer will find themselves in Beijing in a few weeks to continue the talks over there.
Larry, did the Chinese ask for any relief on Huawei in return for a deal?
Huawei really was not a subject that came up. Our take on Huawei right now is that Huawei is a legal matter. It's not part of the trade discussions.
Is that sort of replicated on the other side of the table as well, Larry? Do they take that view?
I can't speak to that. It just didn't come up. There was no, session on Huawei, if you will.
Yeah.
They were focused on the basic essentials, the structural problems, the enforcement problems, and the commodity problems.